Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Fit and Focused for Remote Work and Digital Nomads podcast. We have another nomadic story for you today from Anna from Holland. She's now actually not in Holland, like with all the digital nomads, we change locations often. And, I watched a reel on Instagram like a couple of days ago, and it was funny. And it said, the character in the reel said, home is where Wi-Fi is. And I thought to myself, that is kind of really true for people who work remotely. Home is where your soul, your heart is, your ass is, and where the Wi-Fi is pretty good to maintain your work and lifestyle. So, Anna, the podcast today is a fascinating nomadic story. No two stories of nomads are the same. Probably like for people, but especially for nomads, so many things change over the course of our journey. Nomadic lifestyle, it's like accelerated life, business, career, self-development, self-growth journey. It's like self-development on steroids. You get to learn so much about yourself, about what you want, your boundaries, your rules, things that work for you, things that don't work for you. And Anna's story is, I think, one of the brightest representations of this nomadic journey that accelerate growth and development in all the other areas. So on this podcast, you're going to learn how Anna decided to, not decided, but stumbled upon nomadic lifestyle while seemingly having it all figured out, like the perfect life, the perfect career of a lawyer. Why Anna decided to become a digital nomad, a podcast entrepreneur instead. How it all started. How Anna dealt with expectations of friends and family who don't really understand that thing, nomadic, digital nomad lifestyle. How indeed you can just jump into it, and how Anna did it, and what is the essential mindset for go with the flow beginnings. One sure way to get frustrated and to burn out as a nomad. You're gonna learn all about that. Entrepreneurship as a nomad or as anyone, it's all about solving problems. How Anna figured out as she went that it is what you gotta expect, and you'll enjoy your journey so much more when you have that mindset. What is success for a nomad? It's often about knowing what you want and setting and designing rules and boundaries around that. How Anna created this amazing system to separate work and life and adventures. Learn more about how Anna divided her living space, her working space, how she used different tag, different clothing to, again, maintain this work-life adventures, balance, and boundaries. Anna's approach to healthy lifestyle as a nomad, all about flexibility in fitness, in food, and how to maintain high level of health that is required to lead to be on this very often enjoyable, but also a challenging nomadic journey. Basic food hygiene rules, especially if you travel through countries in Southeast Asia or Latin America, how Google reviews can help you to avoid a lot of belly disasters, and why raw salads might be one of the worst food items to eat while traveling to a lot of destinations. What Anna did during the pandemic, how she was in Bali and the lockdowns, and then journey home, and how she met her current life partner on the road doing all the adventures, what's ahead. So without further ado, stay tuned, listen to this amazing story, and reach out to Anna after if you feel compelled to learn about her journey, to connect, to learn about what she does as a business, learn all about podcasting as a business, and so many other fascinating things about Anna. So tune in, listen, connect with Anna, and perhaps start your own journey. So enjoy. Anna, welcome to Feed and Focus for Remote Work and Digital Nomads podcast. Welcome to the show. So pumped to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm just very excited, to always hear stories of fellow nomads, especially nomads who are more into community building. And I think what you're doing with your podcast, also Digital Nomad Stories. And I'm just curious about your journey, where you started, where you are now, and what's the vision besides all of the things that happen obviously in your life and with your lifestyle, how you keep it all together. So thank you for joining. And let me start from the beginning. Like, how did your journey begin? Well, how did you jump into this digital nomad lifestyle?
Oh, yeah. I jumped in head first. Don't know if I would recommend people to do that. But so my background is before I was nomading, I was studying. I went to university. I was working on my master's. And by the end of that, I was actually in law school and business school. I did that at the same time. I also worked 20 hours a week in a bar as a bartender. And it was a lot, as you can probably imagine. Yeah. It was actually too much. So I ended all of that with a massive burnout. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was super stressed. And in the middle of that, I was like, I don't want to go into an office and start a new job. And like, especially now, but also just in general, I just couldn't see myself sitting in an office. And my goal was always to become a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And I had the perfect internship lined up for after my studies. Like the dream job was within reach. And I was like, you know what? Actually, I don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. So I ended my studies completely lost, no idea what I wanted to do, with a massive burnout, a lot of health issues because of that. And I did the least mature thing you can do at that point. I literally ran away.
Where and how long ago was it, by the way?
This was in 2018.
Okay.
So 4 years ago now. So I booked a flight, went to Southeast Asia, went on a big backpacking trip. And it was always my idea to do some backpacking between finishing my studies and starting a job. So I was like, okay, well, I don't have a job. I don't even know what I want to do, but let's just do this backpacking thing first and I'll deal with the rest later. Like this is future honest problem now. So that is what I did. And I also had this idea of like, you know what, maybe I can find a way to make money online while I'm traveling. Mm-hmm. Like maybe I knew about digital nomads. I listened to a ton of different podcasts about digital nomadism and long-term travel. And I thought maybe I'll just give it a go. So I also took my laptop and I didn't do anything with that idea for the first year, mm-hmm. Year and a half even, I think. So yeah, a long time. It was just travel and forgetting all the problems at home. And then I reached a point where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try. I'm just going to see what happens. I'm just going to give it a go. Mm-hmm.
And where did you learn about, this digital nomad lifestyle? I'm just curious, about the beginnings. Like how do people get the idea in their head that you can actually do that?
Yeah, I don't really know what like the first time was when I heard the term digital nomad, but I always really loved travel. Like travel mm-hmm. was always my big hobby, and my friends were always making fun of me, like, "Oh, you're going on vacation again." Even on my student budget, I would just make sure I could travel. So like 2-3 times a year at least, I would be out of the country, and I don't know, just like exploring new places. And I don't know how, but I ended up listening to all these different podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I heard about all these people who are traveling long term. They don't even have a home base and they can just keep going because they make money on the road.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to go home. And I was like, wow, that is the dream. Like you can just keep traveling. That is
Mm-hmm.
awesome. But I always kind of thought that it was not possible for me. And there's
Mm-hmm.
literally no reason like why it wouldn't be possible for me.
But also, I
But
think, sorry to interrupt. I think there might be a reason. Like, it seems like you also didn't have like a good idea about, online business and how it all works, right?
yeah,
Some people just start there and they already kind of have it all set it up. And I think like people like you and myself also, we just started before we're ready.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. So I knew that I wanted to do something online, but what that exact thing was, no idea. And it took a while to figure that out. And honestly, like I'm still figuring it out how it will look like exactly, because I think also as you are in business and you have your own business, you just keep bumping into problems, challenges. You just get to know yourself so well by doing this and being your own boss. And you just see, okay, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm not good at. This is what I really like doing. This is what I hate. Like all this info is so interesting. And to also narrow down more and more what the business will look like, what the lifestyle will look like. So I think that's also pretty cool.
No, yeah, I think you're so right that more people should take it as a journey of, self-discovery, of discovery of, what you want to do for a living. And also you made a really great point about that entrepreneurship is all about, also solving problems, and you very soon understand that, and I think it's very important also for people who want to maybe jump into this journey and don't know what it is. It's like problems are normal, that's what you do as a business owner. You solve problems. That's what you do, sometimes for yourself, sometimes for other people, but that's basically it, right? I'm also curious, what did your parents, friends, people around you told you? I'm sure some of them thought you were crazy and tried to talk you out of it.
Yeah, all of them. I think they still think that, but then for different reasons, but probably because I'm still going. But I mean,
and how did you deal with this? With whatever negative feedback came your way?
Yeah. So my parents, they thought it was just going to be a backpack trip, and that was fine. Like, okay, they didn't really think that it was possible to start a digital nomad life and keep traveling over like a really long term. But I was like, okay, yeah, that's actually fine. Like, I didn't really like go into this whole discussion with them where I was like, yeah, but it's possible. And I was like, okay, like fine, whatever. And I was really happy that they supported my plan to go on a big trip. And I just told people, I might be home in a year. It might be longer. I don't know. I'll just see. And a lot of people were like, okay, well, see you next year then. And I was actually fine with that. I thought it was also okay because there was not that much pressure and not that many expectations, because that is what I faced when I started studying. And when I was like, even when I was younger, I was always like the smart girl, like, oh, she's so smart, she's going to do big things. So I also felt that pressure of like, oh my God, I need to do big things now. Like I need a job and like make really good money and drive a really cool car, because that's, that was what people expect because I was so smart. And like just in this journey that I went on since graduating, there were no expectations because everyone was like, oh yeah, like she's just taking a gap year. And I was like, okay, if you want to think that, fine. And I also didn't really have expectations for myself. I was also just finding out what it was that I wanted to do. So it was actually fine. And I didn't really have anyone tell me in person like, oh, you're absolutely crazy for starting your own business. I know that people thought that because people actually told me like, oh, I'm so impressed or surprised that you made this work. And I was like, okay, so that means that you had no trust that I could make this work. But that's also fine. I also think it always says a little bit more about the person with these thoughts than about me. And at first, I always wanted to impress people. Like, oh yeah, I want to impress people, and I want people to think, "Wow, did she do that?" And now I'm like, you know what? I don't even care. Like, there are always people with a bigger business, with more money, who travel to more countries, and it's actually fine. Like, good for them. And I just want to enjoy the lifestyle that I have and that I have created for myself. And of course, I have goals. But I don't have that as much anymore, that I always want to impress people. I just want to not even impress myself, but just make myself happy. I think that's the goal now.
Yeah. And I hear, so much maturity and, understanding of self from you, right? That you really are grounded in knowledge of what you want to do, what you want your life about, what you are about, and you're okay with a lot of people not understanding that. And I think that's also a very important, lesson for a lot of people on the journey or wanting to jump into this digital nomad journey to understand is like, at some point, very important aspect is letting those things go, those expectations of others and expectations of yourself, and just instead ask yourself, like, what do I actually want, right? My life to be, or myself to be.
Yeah, it's tough, but I think that's also how you get all these insights because, like I said, when I started the journey, like quite literally the journey, when I started traveling, I had no clue. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do at all. But that's also, I think that is also why I have this knowledge about myself and about what I want, because I had so much freedom. I could go anywhere I wanted and kind of do whatever I wanted to earn money. I mean, I did have to earn money because I didn't save that much before I started traveling. But that also means that I had to get quite creative and try things out, because I had that pressure of that financial pressure of like, girl, you got to figure it out now.
Yeah. And I think, it's actually good pressure. It's pressures you into moving forward, right? And dealing with the real world also. So, and about business and making money. So what do you do now? Like, what did you figure out till this point?
So I own a podcast management agency. It is called The Podcast Babes. And that is my main business, I would say, where I spend most of my time. I also have my own podcast. You already mentioned it, Digital Nomad Stories. So I also spend about 1 day a week working on that business, which is a business now. It started as a passion project, but it also kind of like accidentally evolved into a business, which also makes me really happy, because that just means that I can give it more of my time and attention. So that's also, so those two things is what I currently do to continue this lifestyle.
And before that, like, also maybe people are curious, what did you do along this journey? I'm sure that's not how you started, in podcasting, or maybe you did, not sure.
Well, I did kind of start in podcasting. So when I was studying, I worked as a bartender, and on my travels, I went to Australia. I did a working holiday there, and I also worked in hospitality there a little bit. I worked on a strawberry farm as a professional strawberry picker. So that is quite
a lot of strawberries.
A lot of strawberries, full time for 4 months. Well, I saw a lot of strawberries. So I did some like odd jobs here and there. Then when I started my like working online journey and finding out what I wanted to do, I took a course to become a virtual assistant. And that was really interesting, because it gave me so many kind of random skills that you need when you work online. There was a lot in that course, like blog writing, social media, and one of the modules was also podcast management. And that is where the podcasting comes from, actually, because I always listen to a lot of podcasts. And when I saw that module, like this whole new world opened for me of, wow, like people are doing this as a job. Like people are doing this every day. And I don't I had no idea how podcasts were being created. I thought, well, it's just a person talking into a mic and then they upload it and it's on the internet, right? But there is much more that goes into it, like the audio after it's recorded, it gets edited usually. You want to make sure that there's a nice description. There you need to promote the podcast, so you want graphics and things like that. I mean, Angela, you know all of this, of course, but for listeners who have no idea, like it is a lot of work that goes into it. You want to like schedule guests and find guests and like keep in touch with guests. So it is actually a lot of moving parts that goes into podcasting. So I learned in that course kind of the basics, I would say. And I was just intrigued. So I actually decided to find some virtual assistant clients in podcasting and in social media. I wanted to do both and also to see what I liked and to see what sticks. I thought, social media is super easy. That is what I thought. Well, it was not easy. It was not easy. It was also not for me. I have a lot of respect for people who work in social media because I couldn't make it work for myself. But podcasting actually came quite natural to me. And I figured out that is what I wanted to do more of. So I went full on into podcasting, just podcasting. So I did podcast management as a freelancer for about a year. And in that year, I worked with a few different clients. I started my own podcast at one point. Actually, when the pandemic hit, I started Digital Nomad Stories under, before that I had it under a different name, which was just like kind of random interviews. But then in the pandemic, I decided to niche down, make it Digital Nomad Stories, rebrand it, rename it. And I have been doing that also since then. And it just slowly developed into what it is now. So about a year and a half ago, I also changed the name and the business model into the Podcast Babes. So the name is the Podcast Babes now, and it's not me, just me anymore as a freelancer, but I have a small team who help me with client work and other aspects of the business. And that also means that it is an agency now. So I don't work for clients as much anymore. I focus more on the marketing, managing the team, making sure that clients are happy, and more like the strategic aspect of growing a business and scaling a business, which happens to be my favorite thing. So
you stumbled upon what you loved. Well, you tried a lot of things before. That's I think also an important aspect of what you shared already, is like you have to try things. How else would you know like what you want to do? And about that course, do you think it's still live? Because listeners might be interested in taking this course.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So it's called 90-Day VA by Esther Inman. And it's still going. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Yeah. It still exists. And she updated the course, of course, since then. So she has some new modules and things, but it's still going. It's still, she's still offering it, and it's still quite a popular course. So if you have no idea what you want to do in working online, and you would like to do some kind of service and work with clients, then I highly recommend something like 90-Day VA, because you just get so much basic knowledge about so many different parts of online business. And I think it's just invaluable. Also, just like now running my own business, I don't even do client work anymore, but just knowing all these different things that she taught me like way back when, you just need all these things in a business in some capacity at some point. So even if you don't necessarily want to do virtual assistant work for the long term, I think a course like that, which is the basics, can actually teach you a lot.
Okay. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. And we're going to link it in this show notes so people, it's easier for people to find it. So that's, your professional journey. That is a journey, very fascinating how it all started and into what it evolved. What about your travels? Obviously, now it's pandemic and then one thing or the other. Do you travel that much these days? Where are you connecting today from?
Yeah. So to give you an idea, at the moment I am in Germany. I'm originally from the Netherlands. I don't think I mentioned that yet. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so what happened is I was backpacking 2018, then 2019, I was in Australia for almost a whole year. I was doing my working holiday, and that is at the end of my stay in, I think in September 2019, I took this course. I started looking for clients, started my business. And I decided to go back to Southeast Asia, where I was also backpacking before, because of the low cost of living. Mm-hmm. So I built my business the start of the business, at least in Southeast Asia. I was in Bali for a little bit, as you do, and in Vietnam. I think, most of the time I was in Vietnam. So after Vietnam, my visa ran out, and my friend from back home, she was going to visit me. So I went to Thailand. Mm-hmm. I was there for about a month. That is also where I met my boyfriend. He was backpacking. He was 5 days into his backpacking journey, and we met in the hostel while I was kind of like waiting for my friend to arrive. Mm-hmm. So we clicked, and we like kind of dated for a few weeks. And then when my friend went home, because all the borders were closing, there was a pandemic, all the borders were closing. It was exactly that time. My friend decided to go home a few days early. And I actually had a flight home to go with her after about 2 years abroad. And I decided to not go home and to fly to Bali to see my now boyfriend. So we spent 5 months, the first 5 months of the pandemic, we were on Bali. We had our lockdowns there and everything. That time we were in Bali. And after 5 months there, things were getting a little bit complicated with visas. They were very unclear, like, could we extend or not? And every day there was other news, and no one really knew what was going on. And I was like, you know what? I'll see this as a sign that it's time to visit family and to go back to Europe for a little bit. So that's what we did. We left Bali in August, already 2 years ago. And we spent a lot of time with family, stayed with family for a while. And my boyfriend is from Germany. That's also how we ended up in Germany eventually. He also wants to work remotely, but probably also good to mention that he hasn't found a job that he is fully remote yet. So he is like part-time remote, if that is a thing. So sometimes he can work remotely, and sometimes he needs to be in the office here in Hamburg. So at one point, like every time we were planning to leave and to travel again, and then something would happen, either in my business, financially, or in the world, that made it really difficult to go. Also, my dad, he had some health issues. So I stayed home longer to take care of him. He got a dog, so I stayed home to take care of the puppy. Like all these things kept happening and just like kept us here in the Netherlands and Germany. So at one point we were like, we're probably not going to travel anytime soon, right? So maybe it's time to get an apartment. And that's what we did. So now we have an apartment in Hamburg in Germany, and we travel from here. And so like this weekend I'm going to Prague with a friend. We went to Gran Canaria for 2 weeks. We went to the United States for 2 weeks. And in October, we are renting out the apartment from October on for 6 months. And then we're going on a bigger trip. So we're going to Madeira, to Colombia, and then probably somewhere else in South America as well. So that is a travel life now. We have a home base, which is actually also kind of nice. And we're traveling.
You don't have to travel with all this stuff.
And well, just like the little things, that after a few years, it's just really nice to have, like Airbnbs, when they say they have a fully equipped kitchen, that can mean a lot of different things.
Yes, yeah.
That can mean they have a fully equipped kitchen, or they have like one pan, one pot, and two plates. So to actually have a fully equipped kitchen and to know exactly where the supermarkets are, and to have all our own stuff has actually been really nice. And I didn't really know that is what I would enjoy. But I do actually enjoy it.
Yeah. And I think digital nomad lifestyle in general, it teaches you flexibility, and teaches you the things that you love. Sometimes you travel, sometimes you don't. But it's good, to have this ability to choose how you want your lifestyle to go, right? Sometimes traveling, sometimes think. And yeah, when having the things that you choose, it's definitely nice. I've been on the road for, again, like past, 11 years or something. And I do miss those things. When I visit my family back in Russia, that's where I originally from. I'm like, oh, it's so nice to have familiar things.
Yeah.
Been there for a while.
It's true.
Yeah, I totally get it. We still kind of, as human beings, like to have some sort of base or stability. And, speaking about stability, what I learned and what gave me that sense of certainty among all the things happening is my routines, right? Around health, around nutrition, fitness, mindfulness, all these things that I do every day. And so I wanted to transition into that aspect of digital nomad lifestyle. And I'd like you to share, do you have those routines? Do they give you some sort of stability? And how did you manage your health while traveling? And how do you manage it now? Did it change? What kind of challenges you went through?
Oh yeah, definitely challenges. I haven't really figured it out exactly yet. Like, I feel like I'm still discovering what works for me. I do have a routine, especially a morning routine is important to me. And it's very short, it's very simple. I know that a lot of people do a lot of different steps, and I might want to work towards that, make the routine a little bit bigger as we go. But for now, my morning routine is, in the morning, I have a coffee in bed and I journal. It's very, very simple, but it is honestly the best way for me to start my day, because I just have this moment for myself. I really love coffee. So just like that. Yeah. And just like that. And it's very nice to have this little moment before all the craziness starts. I also, I wouldn't say that this is a routine, but something I learned is I don't have my email on my phone. I don't get notifications from Instagram, from all the social media. I don't, like, the only notifications that I get on my phone are from WhatsApp, and not that many people have my number, which is a really conscious decision. Also, a client recently asked me for my WhatsApp number, and I said, no, sorry, personal use only. I don't want clients to send me WhatsApp messages. And this is a boundary that has been proven to be really, really important to me, because before, like when I just started my business, I think it was also because I was really excited. But I would wake up, first thing I would do, look at my phone. Did I miss anything? Are there any emails that I missed? Do I need to contact clients? Do I need to contact like prospective clients? And that is very stressful. And I would also always see emails coming in. So now my morning routine is, for me, I can just sit in my bed, drink a coffee, journal, and there's no one who can really disturb me, at least no clients. So that has been really nice. And then how to stay healthy while traveling. Work in progress, I would say. I find it pretty difficult. So before I traveled, I always went to the gym. I love boxing. So I went to my boxing classes every week. I went swimming. Like, I was really focused on health. and sports. And when I started traveling, I was like 2 weeks into my backpacking trip and I got really, really sick. I got dengue fever. And like
I remember that word from Thailand, never got it, but I remember.
It is awful. Like all my energy and my whole fitness level, it was gone. It was just completely gone. And this was years ago, but I'm still not back at the point where I left it, which is also fine. Like that is also has not been my priority, but definitely not got it back to where it was. And what I do now, I do a lot of home workouts. So there's a ton of different ones. I use Les Mills on demand.
Yeah, I love it.
So these group classes, and what I love about them is you don't need equipment for many of them. They have so many different ones. Like it's not just body weight or like weight training, but it's also cardio and dance workouts and ballet workouts. And I don't know, like they have literally everything. So I just have a subscription to that, and it's also inexpensive. I can just watch it on my iPad in a hotel room. I can do a quick workout. I will say that I do struggle to make this a routine that I actually do regularly, but the opportunity is there.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I would also, when I'm somewhere for a little bit longer, as in more than 2 to 3 weeks, I always like to see if there is a boxing school nearby that I can go to a few times. But for the past, like also in the pandemic, boxing is not necessarily the first sport that they will offer. Because you have to be quite close and you always have to be one-on-one, like you have to be in contact. So in the pandemic, it has not been the sport to go for. It's mostly home workouts, and then
But hey, Les Mills have like kind of boxing workouts. I love
those. Yes, correct. I definitely do those. I love it. Yeah.
So but your morning routine, I actually wanted to get back to that point because so many people don't guard this, alone time. And they don't, especially at the beginning, as you mentioned, design their routines so they can have their peace of mind, so they can save their sanity, right? They don't set those like rules. Okay, this is for my private communication only. This is for my professional communication. And these are the hours for my phone, for my email, etc. Right? And when I talk to people, those people who fail to set those boundaries at some point, they really do burn out. They feel like their head, and business and everything is all over the place because they don't set those boundaries, right? And I think for digital nomad lifestyle, for digital nomad business owner lifestyle, it's so very important to have those boundaries, right? And also I think it's very important to have them for your lifestyle, right? To have those routines. And to continue on that, right? If you have anything to add to that, as a tip advice, also please feel free to do so, maybe tools, tips for like those boundaries. But also, for other things, do you have other non-negotiables? That's, the term that I heard often from digital nomads in your lifestyle, maybe your nutrition, maybe your sleep. A lot of people also like tell me, well, what do? I want to go to all of this, meetups or parties, and now I have to work. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely a lot that I changed over the years of building my business on the road, because it has been quite intense to combine that. One tip that I got quite early on from a friend who knows a lot about burnout is she recommends to have one spot to work. So that means that here in my apartment in Germany, I usually work from home. My laptop stays on my desk. And of course, there are exceptions, but in general, I work here at this desk. I don't work in bed on the couch at the kitchen table. No, I work here on my desk. So that also means My email is, like I mentioned, only on my computer. So when I close my computer, my day is done. I don't check my email. I don't come back to this desk. And
Mm-hmm.
my body also knows that when I'm not here, I'm not working. So when I'm sitting on the couch, I'm in relax mode. I'm not in work mode. And I also did that when we were living on Bali. There was just one spot in our Bali apartment where I would work. Um, just like that little trick
They
does
call
a
it,
lot for
yeah.
me.
I think, they call it zoning. And
Mm.
I work with, so many people remotely, teams. And I always tell them, like office at home doesn't have to be big or something like super separate, substantial, like, its own thing. No, it can be just one spot, as you said. And you put yourself into that work mode by coming to this place, by using maybe a specific computer and dressing up for work. And once you're done, just leave it there, right? So it's such an
Yeah.
amazing, hack that not a lot of people use, especially at the beginning. So thank
Yeah.
you for sharing it.
Yeah, this has worked wonders for me. Then another thing that I changed a few years ago is this might be a random one, but I always love to go to parties and I would go out every weekend, drink a few beers too many, and then I usually had to recover most of the weekend, which actually did not serve my business very well because I would literally just miss days that I could work on my business because I was hungover and would lie in bed. So a few years ago, I made the decision to stop drinking alcohol. So I have been, living life without alcohol for, I think it's like 2.5 to almost 3 years now. And I love it. Like, I think this has meant so much for my business. This has given me the opportunity to really focus on what's important to me instead of spending so much time recovering from hangovers. And it might be a super random hack. And I'm not saying that when you build a business, you cannot party or have a drink. I just know that for me, it was getting out of hand, as in it was not a priority for me, but I spent too much time in my week on partying.
And yeah, I just wanted, to add, I don't drink, but that's, for my own reason, like my whole life. But I, work with people who do like to have a drink. And I always, like to bring back this idea about awareness. Like they say, but I still get the work done. And I'm like, but you do realize that it still affects you and your work, yeah, of course you get certain things done, you survive, but you're probably not, doing as well. You're not as self-aware and you don't always as consistent as you could have been. Also, of course, there is variety, like there is a range, right? More or less, etc. Not saying that everyone has to be like completely 100% sober, but I do want to, kind of emphasize that alcohol is a very potent kind of drug, and it does affect everyone, whether we want it or not, in some capacity.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for sharing this.
Yeah, a lot of people also say, "Oh yeah, but I'll just drink one glass of wine," and for some people that might work. But I just realized that for me that was actually not working because I struggle with just drinking one glass of wine, because if I would go out and I would be in a social setting, it was actually easier for me to say, no, thank you, I don't drink, instead of drinking one or two, because then the third is so easy. So that is a decision that I made a few years ago, and it works really well for me at the moment, at least. I'm not saying I will never drink alcohol again, but at this point, my priority is just like elsewhere, mostly building my business and enjoying my travels. And I couldn't really combine that as much anymore with the partying that I also did, which I kind of did on autopilot and not because I wanted to. So that is another boundary that I set for myself. Quite a strict boundary, like not a drop of alcohol, but yeah, I think it definitely worked wonders. And that actually also relates a lot to sleep, because when I don't go out to party every week, that also means that I can be in bed by a normal time, have a normal night's sleep. And in traveling, like, sometimes it is difficult to get enough sleep. And I'm not saying that I always get the exact right amount of sleep, right? It's always, but I'll say it definitely gets easier. And sometimes you have to wake up in the morning really early or in the middle of the night to catch a flight. I have that this weekend. I'm not looking forward to it, but I do prioritize sleep, which gets easier when you don't party or you don't drink.
Yeah, that's another thing. You make one choice and it just changes a lot of other choices down the road. Right. And the same like with you mentioned one glass and then it gets harder to manage all the other glasses because the alcohol is in your blood already. It's like a lot of those things, right? In our life, we make one choice and it makes you make a lot of other choices. And I think as a digital nomad, you just also become like a little bit hyper aware of those things. Like, okay, I changed this and now, I'm in this loop. I changed that and now I'm in a different loop, right? So thank you again for sharing this about how, alcohol and partying and not doing that anymore affected your sleep. And that probably also changed a lot of other things. I don't know, in your business, in your life, etc., in your personal development. That's what I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think the question is just, what are your priorities? And how can you make sure that you actually have time and focus for these priorities? And for me, that was until now-ish, that was building my business so that I can have a stable income, which I can use to then travel. That is also why, like this apartment and just staying put in Germany has actually been really good for my business because I could really focus on that. Now, in the 6 months that we are going away and we're going traveling again, we'll be on the road. My focus will shift. My priority will be traveling. Not saying I won't work. I will definitely work on my business, but it won't be my first priority. It will be my second priority. A first priority is travel, having fun, exploring. And then when we're back in Germany, that will probably shift again into more focus on my business.
And again, very important to understand like where your priorities are. And that's how you start, this is my priority. And this is why I'm scheduling my day like that, right? And also, I think I wanted to point out that digital nomad lifestyle, it doesn't have to be anything specific. Like, you can travel for a couple of weeks here if you can manage that, or you can do like, I prefer slow traveling, like go there and stay there for a few months, so I have the time to do some traveling, but also focus on my work. So it's not like one size or one way to do it, right? There are many ways to do it. So thank you for, also sharing that. You have your priorities and based on that, you schedule all the other things. I think it's a very important point. If you don't have anything to add here, I'd like to also jump into nutrition a little bit because, that's like one of my biggest passions. And with traveling, I also hear from people like, but how do you eat healthy? There is also like all the things that you want to try, but then also, sometimes you can't cook, like all of this, obstacles to eating healthier intention. So how did you go about that? Did you try to do it at all, or you just decided to try everything? Like, how did that journey look?
That is a really good question. Again, still trying to figure this out. I really like to cook. So if we do have an Airbnb, usually when we're somewhere for more than a few nights, we would get an Airbnb or something with a kitchen. I really liked, I prefer staying at a small apartment or studio instead of hotels. I'm not a huge fan of most hotels if I'm there for longer than a few nights. So I would actually always make breakfast for ourselves, which makes it already easier to start a day on a good note and healthy. And in the evening, we would go out for dinner more often, also depending where we are. So my boyfriend and I were both vegetarians, which means that it already narrows down where we would usually go out for food. Also depending on the country, right? In some countries you can go wherever and they always have a vegetarian option.
I think like Southeast Asia, right?
Yeah, usually there is a lot of vegetarian food in Southeast Asia. Also depends a little bit on the country. But I think that also can make it a little bit easier to get all your veggies in, because if it's not meat, then you got to eat something. So it's a lot of like rice and veggies or noodles and veggies. Like I remember when I was living in Da Nang, Vietnam, I was there for 2 months. There was this amazing vegan Vietnamese food spot.
Mhm.
It was a restaurant and they had all like the classic Vietnamese food, but then vegan. But it was also for Vietnamese prices and like it was so good. So I would literally just go there every day to eat my, Vietnamese soup. Um, so yeah,
Only Vietnam, like, is it the pho or po? Is it Vietnamese?
yeah, exactly. But then all the vegetarian or vegan even, and all the vegan variations of it. So yeah, that like I always try to make a conscious decision, like, okay, like not pizza every night, even when we're in Italy, or but yeah, a really good balance. That's why I'm following you, Angela, to see the tips that you can give us about that.
Oh, tips. I personally always like to tell people just keep it simple, stick with whole foods, avoid products. And,
Yeah.
there are different also tips for people who are trying to kind of maintain weight or lose weight. But yeah, just keeping it simple. And that's what I heard from other nomads.
Yeah.
And actually wanted to ask you a little bit more. Like, what are your maybe to-go foods? I noticed that a lot of digital nomads who are into healthy eating, a little bit more, intentional about that, they're like, well, I just keep the same food everywhere, like have eggs for breakfast or, something for dinner, maybe lunch out or vice versa, different for different people. Like, do you have your own staples that you're trying to have in every place?
So what I really love eating is, like these couscous bowls or veggie bowls or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's usually just either couscous or rice or some kind of, I don't know, something like it. And then a lot of different veggies. And then usually something like hummus or I don't know, something like hummus.
Mm-hmm.
And a variation of that, you can make that in a few minutes everywhere when you don't have the most advanced kitchen to your
Mm-hmm.
disposal.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that you can switch it up. Like you can use different veggies for it. You can add tofu or I don't know, like feta cheese or whatever you want. So that is often my go-to either lunch or dinner when we're somewhere, and especially because it's so easy, like you said, keeping it simple. Yeah, you have to keep it simple because who knows what they have at this specific supermarket and this country. You
Mm-hmm.
also it can be quite different. Yeah, and for breakfast we usually make either overnight oats or just yogurt and fruit, like
Mm-hmm.
very simple.
Yeah.
um,
And you can find those things, anywhere. And what's also really
yeah
cool, even if you don't speak the language, you can recognize those foods.
yeah exactly.
um, One question: did you ever, have any troubles with like having stomach problems or something? For me, I love trying foods, but sometimes it just like with my stomach, like it's new bacteria or something else, and my stomach just goes all wrong. Like, did you have any experiences, maybe, or maybe do you have advice for people like how you try to avoid those, disasters?
Yeah. Ooh, good one. I had Bali belly once, on Bali, of course, and it was not fun. Like it was, I think, took me a good 2 days to recover, and I could just lie in bed. That was it. It was really bad. But I think I only had that like maybe once in all my travels. So usually it's not that bad. But I mean, I am quite careful. I always try to see like when I get street food, is it clean? Especially sometimes in a lot of countries, they just have meat lying in the sun. Well, I don't eat meat anyways, but I would also recommend maybe not to eat that when you do eat meat. So yeah, these kind of things. And then a tip that I got early on before I went traveling was raw vegetables can be problematic.
Yeah.
So I also, depending on where I am and like, can I see the kitchen? Is it clean? I would sometimes also not eat raw veggies. And also that also includes salads, right?
Yeah.
So I try to make sure that everything is cooked and no meat that was lying, no meat at all for me, but otherwise no meat that was lying in the sun. Just like a quick hygiene check of the kitchen if possible.
Yeah.
And then I also, my boyfriend is obsessed with looking up reviews of places on Google. So he has rules, as the German that he is, about how many reviews and how many stars a place needs to have before we can eat there. So I always make fun of him for that. But I think that also helps in not getting sick. You know, when a place has a ton of good reviews and a lot of people are eating there, also like when it's street food and there's a lot of people already there eating, like when they're busy, then the food needs to be fresh. Like it will probably not be yesterday's or the day before's food because they would have already sold that. So I think that's also a good little tip, you know.
Yeah, but I wanted to, to come back to raw vegetables and salads. People think I'm a nutritionist, I eat a lot of salad. Actually, in Latin America and Southeast Asia, not so many unless I make them.
Yeah.
Just because of that. Yeah, when you don't cook the food, like all the bacteria just have so much more like a possibility to stay there. So yeah, totally on board with it. And, when it comes to fruit also, like make sure maybe that they're clean and washed and don't put everything in your mouth right away. So thank you. Thank you for sharing, this, Anna. That's been amazing. I'm going to be mindful about your time. We are almost at an hour point. So at this point, I always like to ask, do you have any parting advice, tips, thoughts for people who may be thinking about jumping into this journey, right? Or even people who are just at the beginning and haven't figured it all out. Like can be work related, can be, travels, vacations, adventures, lifestyle, anything.
Oh yeah. My main advice would be to enjoy the journey. I always had a goal in mind, like, oh my God, when I reach this, then everything is perfect and then I'm happy and, then I made it or whatever. But I realized on the way that the journey is the fun. And sometimes it's not fun, but it brings you something. It brings you a lesson or understanding of a situation, or it lets you meet people. So it's all in the journey. So enjoy it.
Yeah, such a good advice. Sometimes like a goal-oriented person myself, I forget to do that still. So amazing advice. And the last piece, where should people go to connect with you, to learn about your business, learn about you? What are the best places?
So I would say listen to my podcast. It's called Digital Nomad Stories. You can find it at digitalnomadstories.co. Over there, you can also find my social media channels. There's a button for all of them. So if you want to follow me there, that would also be really cool. You can also reach out if you have a question or if you want to share that you listened to this episode. We'd love to hear it. If you are looking into podcasting, my business is called The Podcast Babes. You can find it at thepodcastbabes.com. So there you can find out more about what we offer there in helping you set up your podcast or manage your podcast. And that's it.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to link all this stuff in the show notes for guys to easily find all of that. Thank you again, Anna, for this amazing episode, for sharing all the tips. There is so much, practical stuff that people can just apply and it will work for, if not for everyone, then for most people, right? So thank you again. And looking forward to hearing from you and learning more from your journey.
Thank you so much for having Angela. And thank you for everyone who listened. It means a lot.